Well, YouTube, we're here on a lovely summer's morning in a park field near my house in London, and what we're going to be discussing today is the engine dog bone mount. This is mine, which has just come off my car, and you will notice over here that it has cracked. Now, that was a bit of a surprise to me. I drive a Seat Leon Cupra R, which is based on the Mark IV Golf platform. The Cupra R is essentially an S3 with a Spanish shell that hasn't got Quattro. So it's based on 1.8T engines. These dog bones actually were used across the Mark IV Golf platform. So in SKODAs, AUDIs, Seats, VWs, they were used in the petrol and the diesel engines as well. Now, this basically screws into the subframe of the car, this side here, and it's got like a bushing, and then this side goes onto the lower part of the engine, and it also has a bushing there. I actually had this dog bone mount PowerFlex, so you've got the PowerFlex bushes here, you can see that red, and there was also a PowerFlex bush in the lower engine part there. Now, I've been driving the car for a couple of weeks. I started to feel a little bit loose, sort of in cornering, in steering, just the way it was handling was a bit off, and I thought there must have been something wrong with some of the suspension components. And then one day I was just driving, I heard a big thud under the car. Suddenly, every time I was changing gear, there was a big thud on the floor. I could feel the vibrations under my feet, and the car wasn't putting power down, and you know, the handling was just all over the place. So I figured there must have been something wrong with the suspension components. When we got the car up on the lift, I was really surprised to see that this is what had happened, that I've snapped the engine dog bone mount. Now, it's quite common for these to actually loosen up. There are some stretch bolts which go into the dog bone mount there and secure it to the subframe, and those is quite common for them to sort of loosen up, and they may need sort of retightening after once in a while. They can also snap. So I'd heard of that before, but I'd never really heard of or seen the actual dog bone mount snapping like this. So that's a first for me to see, and I'll be interested to hear in the comments if anybody else has experience of something like this happening on these cars. Now, it's a Cupra R, so from factory it's got the KO4 turbo, and it's running about 225 brake horsepower. I have got a few bolt-on mods. There's a Cobra exhaust, the Ram air intake, the Badger 5 oversized turbo intake pipe, the forged diverter valve, and I've got videos on all of those on the channel. But what I haven't got is a remap, and I mean, I would have suspected that something like this would happen on a remap car. For it to happen on my standard map with bolt-ons is quite surprising, and I think it just shows you know, the engine is strong, working well, and also perhaps that the car is being driven hard on track days, obviously. Now, I just wanted to share that with you guys, and just, you know, see if anybody else has come across this before. I don't think that the PowerFlex bushes are the reason that this happened. I've had them on cars before. Admittedly, I've had them only on the sort of upper part and not on the lower engine mount part of the dog bone, and this time I did have them there as well, but I don't think that that's the reason. I know that I've had, you know, a few sessions of hard driving recently, and since then I think, you know, it must have cracked or got loosened, and then after a while just sort of wore apart and broke. Now, I've replaced that with, just to get the car on the road as quick as possible, with the cheapest option from Euro Car Parts, which is the Starline mount, and that cost me about £40, which is really quite cheap. The original VW one I looked into getting from TPS, but it was costing about £120–130 with including tax, and they didn't have it in stock. It would have taken a few days to deliver to my area. Euro Car Parts had a better option than this one, than the one I've put back on the car, which was a bit more expensive. It was about £75, but they didn't have that in stock in my local branch either, so I ended up getting, reluctantly, the cheaper one. But actually, since that's on the car, I can feel a slight difference because it's no longer got the harder PowerFlex bushes, in that it feels a bit softer. But actually, since this one was, you know, playing up and had an issue, or must have been cracked and must have been a bit looser and not holding the engine properly, I can now feel that everything is held in place much more firmly. I have much better traction, and you know, the nose is staying down when I'm putting my foot down rather than moving up and moving around. So actually, if you've If you're going to be doing something on these DOGBONE mounts, because you can uprate them, you can get better mounts, there's a few different options you have. One of those is to put the PowerFlex bushes in, and I've got a video sort of reviewing that and how to do it as well. That's a very common modification. Another option is that you can actually get an uprated race DOGBONE mount as well, but one thing you have to bear in mind is that the harder you go, the more sort of vibrations and stiffer feeling you're going to have in the car, and a lot of people like that, and personally I do as well, but you just got to bear in mind that for some people those vibrations are not good. What I had on this was the PowerFlex bushing, the red diesel one rather than petrol one, because it's a bit softer to minimize vibrations, and I had the bushing for the lower engine part there as well. So yeah, that's just an experience I had. A bit of a funny story. I'm probably going to clean this up and keep it as a trophy, I suppose. I was going to take the bushing out of it, but I thought I'd just leave it in there, and I'm just going to keep this as a trophy. Broken DOGBONE mount on a standard map, Seat Leon Cupra R, badge of honor. This is Redline Revs. I hope you enjoy the video. I hope it's been useful to you. Like I said, I've got videos on how to do the DOGBONE bushes, as well as reviewing PowerFlex bushes in general. So take a look at that, and make sure you comment, make sure you rate and subscribe. There's going to be a lot more coming up.